'Tis the season. Hi everyone, I'm Larry Satchwell, and it is the season. If you are among the 20% of people who still buy live Christmas trees, like we are, I'm going to show you some ideas you might want to use for next year's decorations. So don't throw away that Christmas tree. I usually cut the top out of ours and recycle that. There's a program here called One for the Chipper, but I usually leave a lot of it. The first thing I do, I leave the branches on until the needles have fallen off. I usually shake those on the garden or in the compost pile. And then I cut the branches off. Lots of different ways to do that. Cutting the branches off is not difficult. One of my favorite, I'm a power guy tool, is the oscillating sander. But you can also use a pruning saw, really any kind of saw. You want to get them as close to the stump as you can. I also mark the ends. This is last year's tree, 2024, but this is from 2017. Well, 2015. These I've already made stuff out of, so the marks are gone, so I really don't know what year they are. But this one has a long crack in it. Not going to throw it away because we're going to use that crack to our advantage. Next thing I do is cover it with sanding sealer. Cover the ends really well. It helps it dry out slowly and it prevents cracks, but over 10 years, they might develop a crack. One of my favorite things to do is to make little cookies with them. When you're cutting cookies, I'll show you how to do that. You've got to be really careful because it's really easy to have a kickback, which is when the saw grabs the round object and kicks it back at you. It can be very dangerous. So you've got to be really careful doing that. And again, you can do that with a hand pruner, works really well, or any kind of a saw. I'm going to be using power tools for the main part because I'm going to be making a lot of cookies. And speaking of cookies, let's get into our first project, scroll saw ornaments. You can copy these little things off the internet and apply them with paper, and cut them out on your scroll saw. They make really cool decorations. I like to use a jig when cutting these cookies on a bandsaw. That way I have a really firm grip. It's really dangerous to do it freehand. If you're using your miter saw, you might have to shim the back or the underside to make sure it has a firm hold. And go slow. Wait for the saw blade to stop before you pick it up. No jigsaw? No problem. You can use those same patterns and just paint the cookies. I like to seal them with shellac. That way I know they're going to stay, and if there's any sap, it will seal the sap around the bark. You can also use them in your seating arrangements or as coasters. How about a wreath? I've seen these at Lowe's and Home Depot, but they're not made out of my Christmas trees. To keep this round, I'm going to start with this old paint can and line up my cookies. Find one that's just right to fit in there. And I'm going to be using Tight Bond Quick and Thick and a little CA glue to put these together with. This one is a little bit thin. You want to get this bottom size so that all the cookies are about the same thickness. Then I think it's best to rearrange them on top here before you glue anything up. That way it's a lot easier to know exactly what you've got in mind here. Just right. The thick glue will dry clear. Give that a nice press. On this one, my wife decorated it with some berries and a ribbon. This is a little smaller one. I used a quart paint can for this one and decorated it with old buttons and a sleigh from the dollar store. It's not my favorite wood to turn on a lathe. You need really sharp tools because the growth rings are so wide that sometimes you get a lot of chip out. It also throws off a lot of pitch, but it's doable. And of course, you can make some candle holders. Here I'm finding the center line, punching it with my awl. I like to keep it in this vise because the Forstner bit has a lot of torque. Once you have those dead branches off, they make great fire starters. Just cut them up in 4 to 6 inch pieces, and I wrap them up in some jute. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but I also recycle any candles I have. I've just been heating them up in this old double boiler here. I'm going to put my fire starters in here, give them a good dunk. Make sure I get that jute full of wax and let them drain off. How about a rustic snowman? Who doesn't like a snowman? old buttons came from a treadle sewing machine that I inherited from my grandmother. A little dab of super glue or CA glue and a little dab of this spray and it instantly bonds. Remember that split down the big log? Not a problem. I used it to cut that log right in half. Just when you thought, I can't believe he didn't do tea lights, I couldn't disappoint you. I did tea lights. Here are some more turned Christmas trees, and I used that hexagon jig from another video. Of course, if you don't want to make any of those things, you can always burn it in your fire pit. Thanks for watching.